Hello, and thank you for joining another episode of Design Under Influence provided to you by ArcIT. Today, Boris and I are battling PCs versus Macs on LinkedIn Live event. And all it is we're not saying one is better than the other. What we're saying is there's, you got to choose your battles and you got to understand the shortcomings and the advantages of each platform. And we go through those on our LinkedIn Live event. People are asking questions as we go. So this show format is a little bit different. Hopefully you'll find it enjoyable. Would love to hear your feedback. Without further ado, enjoy the show.
Hello, thank you all for joining us. Absolutely a privilege to be here, especially with the sun shining behind me and our little vacation spot. But hey, this is where best thinking happens. So let's think through this topic. So today, Boris, you ready?
Yeah, I mean, we got to kick it off. Let's go.
All right, let's run this thing. So today we're touching on touchy subject, and as an IT practice focused on architecture, engineering, and design companies, we see a lot of PC offices, we see a lot of Mac offices, and we see and support a lot of mixed Mac and PC offices. The challenge mostly arises when those are mixed, right? So Mac offices run Vectorworks, maybe versus Revit, or, you have applications that are Mac specific and everyone is typically in sync. Now, PC offices is kind of similar. We're running into situations where there are multiple platforms kind of colliding a little bit in the workspace. So we're going to cover best practices. We're going to talk you through how to provide our recommendations on how to bring on potentially new Mac users or provide an alternative solution depending on what you're running in your architecture practice. So let's just get right into it. We have a list of things we want to cover that we found are the most sort of hotly debated subjects and things that we end up supporting. And so those are the kind of three key areas we're going to cover. But dear audience, we are looking for your questions. We are looking for your individual issues and helping you solve those right here on this live broadcast. And if not, we can always follow up and provide you guys a good idea resolution, no cost, nothing like that. All right, so just to give you a quick overview, first we're going to talk about professional versus personal data and how it flows in your organization if you're using a Mac. PC, not so much of an issue. Mac it is. Now, second thing we're going to cover is security. That's a big topic. We're not going to go deeply into the technical aspects of it, but we'll talk about Mac security versus PC security, where potential potential holes are in each of the operating system, and how to think about those, closing those out and keeping your business safe. And number three, finally, we're going to come into probably something that's going to be hotly debated is Mac versus PC for Revit or Bluebeam, right? Using Mac on Revit and Bluebeam specifically. Boris, anything I'm missing out here?
No, I think you got it all covered, but I do want to reiterate, we're here to answer your questions. So we're talking about these subjects, but I want you, the audience to participate and make sure that they bring their issues to our attention so we can answer them. I guess that's where we can kind of kick stuff off.
Yeah, sounds good. Elizabeth says that I froze. Hopefully that would not repeat. But we're dealing with a little bit of a vacation home internet, so please forgive me. And if it gets bad, I'll just dial in from a phone or temporarily shut off the video, something like that. Anyway, let's jump right into this. First topic. Personal versus professional data on Macs. Boris, where are we seeing problem? And you and I talked a lot about this, and I'm a Mac, fully Mac guy. You're a fully PC guy, and that's great. We support both. But we talked about one biggest issue that we discovered is essentially taking pictures and images or videos related to your work, syncing them with your iCloud, and then trying to get those into the projects. That seems to be where things get a little hairy. Talk us through the issue and then your recommendations.
Well, so again, I think we need to kind of take a step back and look at, an overall experience of, why. So the reason why people choose to use Mac in a lot of cases, right, is the simplicity that is derived from being on an Apple ecosystem. We've talked a lot about that. Like, you love that simplicity, that all your stuff syncs, right? You're in that one iCloud account, everything is synchronizing. You can add a device to your iCloud account. You have access to all your files, which is awesome. But at the same time, I think the challenge arises where you're starting to use your Mac for your business and you're expecting kind of similar workflows. And the challenge arises is now all your pictures, both business and personal, are synchronized into your iCloud account. And if you need to share those out, or you need to invite people to look at those things, whether it's pictures or files or anything like that, you need to start being more careful about who has access to what, and separating between allowing access for business stuff to your business partners or employees and non-business stuff. And I think, that's where we come up with, well, hey, we're just, for business, we're going to use Microsoft products or Google products, and kind of separate that way. I think, that's what you're doing, right? When you're working with us at Arc IT, is you have your separate stuff in Microsoft. And so that's one of the solutions that we can use, is basically use a separate service to store your data. But what happens with that is your workflow, kind of the workflow that you're used to and the simplicity that you have with the Mac kind of becomes less efficient, right? So now you have to, okay, if I take a picture, I need to save it to the Microsoft Drive. If I can't just keep it in my iCloud. So things like that become a challenge.
Okay. What about using another iCloud login? Essentially having one for, your business related stuff, pictures, blah, 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 and one for personal stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's another option, although I think it kind of is mirroring what we're talking about, adding another service to the mix. The problem is, if you're still utilizing the same device, right, and it's in business and personal, and it's one device, you have to constantly log in and log out of your iCloud account, which becomes even harder to accomplish, and creates more issues for you, where you can mix things up and put a personal account and forget that you need to log out and things like that.
Okay, well, I'll weigh in on some of the advantages of using Mac, specifically like one that I found. I've invested in this super powerful machine, right? And I want to be able to use it across platforms because it's just everything's so seamless. However, the challenge is with personal mixed with professional, it's not always easy to untangle, and it ends up, at least in my case, sometimes costing more time for me to untangle personal work stream from a personal stream from a work stream. So that's a bit of a challenge. But if you guys have any questions on mixing personal and professional, please let us know. We'll tackle that for you as well. But any other parting words of wisdom on that piece, that topic?
Well, I think in the end, and the best practice recommendation would be is to have two separate devices, right? It's fine. It's awesome using a Mac for your business, for your architecture practice. Keep the device separate, right? Have a device that you're only using for your personal stuff, and have another device that you're using for your business. Just like I think, we would do normally, right? You'd have a separate business checking account for your business and a separate account for your personal budget. Same thing with other things, taxes and things like that. So you want to make sure that separation of business and personal kind of goes all the way through, because a lot of what we see is people trying to use the same devices across the board.
I got you. And I could see where the problem might come out. You're working from home, you're on vacation, whatever. You need to check into the project to do something, that's when you use your personal computer. But in general, I think it's a solid advice, having a work computer and personal computer. Smaller companies run into this problem where, they don't realize they've grown to 10 people or 7 people or 15 people and don't have the policies in place to make sure that the work computers are issued and, recommendations are issued that not, personal stuff not be included in those computers. And I think that's a great practice. And it's also, look, for your mental health, it's an important piece. Separation of business and personal, right? So you don't have your business computer, you can answer a couple emails, but you're not working on the project on your vacation, on your personal time. I think that's a good practice overall. You need to take breaks for you to be more efficient, better operator. You need to take breaks and let your mind rest and focus on where you are versus trying to be at 2 places at once. Anyway, let's talk about security. Let's shift gears. Do we have any questions? Let me pop into here in the chat. Not thus far. Really, guys?
I think there's a
You have
couple.
no questions? Really?
I think there's
hit me.
You may need to refresh. I think I found that
gosh.
the chat doesn't update real time.
I'm very sorry, guys. Let me refresh and see what happens. Oh, yes, we do. Hey, Henry, how's it going? Okay, Henry's question. He's a director of IT systems, so probably going to be a technical question for us. So get ready for it. File naming via Mac is painful for PC systems. Ending files with non-breaking space, emoji style naming, etc. Your recommendation here, Boris?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure what the actual question is, but yes, I agree.
Maybe it's a comment.
People that, yeah, it's more of a comment. People that are used to Mac file naming and when working in PC offices, especially, yeah, we see that to be a problem. I mean, training has to be, there has to be training that needs to happen to make sure that file naming conventions that can be adapted across the board, across the platforms, both Mac and PC are used.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Henry, if you have a follow-up on this one, please hit us. Boris is ready for a challenge. Now, next, Peter's question. Peter, hey, on Macs, does it make sense to have separate users to divide personal/work? We sort of kind of covered that on different iCloud accounts, but let me just finish the question. Seems a bit much to have 2 different machines. So I think Peter's point is very, very good. Is like, hey, as I mentioned, like it's kind of a little bit of a pain. It's nice to have one powerful machine that does it all. I think we kind of addressed it, but Boris, do you have any more color on this? Users.
Well, I think we talked about, didn't we talk about creating separate user logins on a machine? That is actually a very good way of handling that separation. As long as, again, you kind of remember to log off and log back in with the proper username for business or for personal. I think once you have that process down, then yeah, having 2 separate users, 2 separate iCloud accounts will get you there in terms of the machine. I think the bigger problem happens on your phone, because on your phone, you still need to remember to switch iCloud accounts. You can't have different usernames or different profiles on your phone. So that's where you may run into a challenge, is all of a sudden you log into your business account on your Mac, but you don't see any like pictures or any documents that you might have uploaded from your phone. And it's because your phone was connected to a different iCloud account. So that's something to always pay attention to.
Yeah. So being mentally present when you do this is going to be, it's almost like using 2 separate machines, right? So you pull out one out of your back and you work, you pull out another one and you do personal stuff. Same thing here. You got to log in to one, log into the other. So Boris, you think it's a feasible solution as long as it's practiced?
Yeah, as long as it's practiced and as long as it's done properly with mindfulness, as you said, that will definitely work. I mean, it does detract from some of the benefit, right, that you get with the ease of usability on a Mac. But you have to make compromises.
Okay, gotcha. We have one more question from Peter. We're really happy with the Mac hardware and platform, but a recent hitch was trying to use Bluebeam, which is no longer supported. Any recommendations? Yeah, we're gonna get there towards the end. Well, as a topic number
Well,
three.
it's fine. No, we should probably
but no,
handle
no.
it now,
Well,
since
100%. I was just gonna say that you said that it'll come up right away, and I
yeah, that's exactly what I said.
let's punch this.
So, Peter, and for anybody else who has a similar question, well, there's really a couple of ways to work around it, right? One, if you're happy with Mac hardware, but you don't mind using a Windows platform, you can do a virtual machine on your Mac, or you can do, a dual boot scenario, to where you also install PC. You also install a Windows partition, so you can use the PC side of things on your Mac, right? So that will allow you to run the Bluebeam application in a Windows environment on your Mac. Obviously, again, creates a little more hustle as a workaround, but it's doable. Another thing, so a few of our clients, what they're doing right now, if it's a fully Mac shop and it's like 6 or 7 people, have a dedicated PC that just sits there and basically is used for Bluebeam or any other tools that you may need to run in a PC environment. For example, one of our clients has 2 dedicated Lumion PCs because they basically run Lumion, which is a real-time rendering software on those PCs. Outside of that, they're fully Mac. So that could be a solution, right? Just invest into a machine and use it as you need it, because depending on how big your firm is and what exactly you're doing with Bluebeam, a lot of times it's just kind of trying to get permits through the city of San Francisco or through another municipality, because they do require use of Bluebeam for electronic permitting. So you can have a dedicated PC for that process and do it there. Now, if you want to do some real time, if all the people need to use Bluebeam kind of at the same time, then you most likely have to do the Mac workarounds, or you'd have to look at other tools outside of Bluebeam, like Adobe Acrobat Pro, which kind of does the same thing. Not as great as Bluebeam, obviously, but I mean, they do have, right, it's a PDF editor, so they do have very similar capabilities to Bluebeam.
Gotcha. Very cool. Another question from Michael. Michael, thank you. Question is, can you do virtual Windows machine with an M1 Mac?
Very good question. So Parallels now support M1. However, you still need, right, a Windows operating system that supports M1. And I believe there's a beta for the ARM version of Windows. I don't think it's full production yet, but you'll basically be able to install that beta inside Parallels and run Windows on an M1. I don't know. We haven't really done testing in terms of how the performance looks like, but all the feedback that I've heard, the performance is pretty decent, and better than the Intel machines from the past. So hopefully that answers it.
Good question. Yeah. So Michael, if you have a follow-up question to this, let us know. We're gonna think we're gonna slowly coast into the security side of things. And by the way, guys, feel free to jump around, ask any questions you want. This is your time. We want to spend it wisely and help you out. It's kind of the plan here. So security. What's the latest? I mean, perception, reality. We've addressed this topic multiple times in our podcast. Perception is reality. Perception is Mac is more secure. It's less numerous, therefore less ransomware hackers out there. I don't know if it's true anymore or as true as it used to be. It used to be like this number two, number two provider, way behind PC, and then it's like start catching up, and now it's really prominent. So where are we at on security, boys? PC, Mac.
Well, I'm still a big believer in comprehensive security, no matter which operating system or which platform is being used, right? We still need to have our best practices in place. We still need to have our basic security measures in place. Just because a manufacturer says that something is more secure doesn't detract from following the best practices and making sure that it's not just you're not just relying on Apple to tell you we're more secure, right? You're still having additional tools in place to make sure that if there's any attacks, that you have visibility into that. If there's any other kind of security events, that you're protected, right? So we're still recommending, and for all our firms that are on Mac, we're still installing, an antivirus software on it. We're still installing URL filtering to make sure that people don't click on any links and jump to bad websites. We're still kind of monitoring, and monitoring activity on the devices to make sure there's nothing kind of fishy going on. So, and obviously, like encouraging everybody to use electronic password managers, encouraging everybody to use complex passwords. So all those best practices still need to be followed, whether you're using Mac or PC in your office or both. From our standpoint, from a standpoint of IT and from mitigating risk for your business, it's better to kind of be overprotected than underprotected and rely on just, hey, this platform more secure than the other. The truth is, cybersecurity is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And when I say cybersecurity, I also mean cybercrime. So cybercrime is basically an industry that is constantly evolving, and it's always, there's always new threats that are coming out, and it doesn't matter which platform you're running. If you're not following best practices, at least the minimal best practices, you will end up getting hit, no matter the size of your business, no matter the platform.
Gotcha. Are there any differences between protecting PCs or protecting Macs? Anything different? You mentioned a number of things like URL filtering and antivirus software and password managers. Those are like your best practices across the board. Anything jumps out to you that you have to do, that we have to do extra on Macs versus PCs, or PCs versus Macs, either way?
No, I think what the good thing about the Mac platform is a lot of those things you're being forced to do regardless, right? Like by default, when you sign up for an iCloud account, for example, it requires you to have a two-factor authentication, which most services do now anyway, but it wasn't the case 2 years ago. And Mac have been doing for a long time. So I think the Mac platform does a better job of enforcing those security best practices. They also do a better job of maintaining privacy for your data and your information, your personal information and things like that, which shouldn't be confused with security, right? Privacy and security are kind of two different things. One has to do with protecting, kind of mitigating the risk and protecting yourself from bad actors. And the other one has to do with how your information is being used and how your information is leaving your devices, right? So that's privacy. So Mac does a good job now of kind of popping up and saying, hey, do you want to share this information? Do you want to share your location data? Do you want to share all of that? So that enhances privacy of your data. It doesn't necessarily enhance security.
Gotcha. Thanks for that. Thanks for that little tidbit. Now, privacy versus security. Interesting. We should do a whole episode on that. I think I'm very interested to dig deeper into this. It's as prominent as ever. And yeah, well, privacy invasion can end up being being security breach. So, all right. So we got another question. Let's take Nancy. By the way, I want to recognize Nancy. She's with Arc IT, and she's there putting questions into our teams so we can answer them. Nancy, thank you so much. And Nancy, please write down privacy versus security as a next or one of the future podcast topics. I really like that idea because I'll forget it if you don't write it down. Okay. Question from Jacqueline. We currently are not a BIM office, but are looking ahead at this need down the line as we are start hiring, expanding. As the firm owner, but not being a BIM user myself, never had to learn it. I've heard the biggest hurdle is having a full-time BIM manager on call for troubleshooting in models to quote, clean up models, etc. How would you recommend someone in my position go about integrating BIM into a practice? The first baby steps, of course, in terms of infrastructure and pro tips before testing this on our first project. Parentheses, we're thinking of going with ArchiCAD since we are a Mac office. Appreciate your thoughts. Okay, Boris, there's a lot there. Do you understand
a lot
the question?
there. I do. No, I do understand the question.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Appreciate it, by the way.
I think we'll give some kind of high level guidelines, and then Jackie, you and I can talk more in person to follow up on some of these things. But I guess to me, anytime that you're trying to implement something newer in your business, and Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you always want to kind of start with the end in mind, right? Like you want to see, like, what does done look like? Like, what does the end look like? What are we trying to accomplish? And then kind of work your way backwards. Wouldn't you agree?
Wholeheartedly, completely, yeah. Because if you don't see, it's if you don't have the outcome in mind first, it's a very difficult road because you're not going anywhere fast.
Right. So I guess the first thing, Jack, is you kind of need to identify what it is, because BIM is such a catchy, I guess, trendy word nowadays, but it means so many different things. But if you're trying to make your work and your models more efficient, be able to run a lot, better analysis on them, make your work easier, right? Create families or templates or, I don't remember what they called in ArchiCAD. I think they're also called families, but maybe not. In Revit, they're called families, right? Create objects that you can easily put into your models. So those are all benefits of going with BIM. I think initially, if you kind of focus on making sure that when you are, making sure when you're setting up your models, all of those elements get created properly, so that you don't have to redo them down the line. I think that would be a very good start, right? Making sure that, and I think ArchiCAD has a good library of elements, but as we find out with both ArchiCAD and Revit, you have to modify those to fit your practice and make sure that you're getting the right, schedules and things like that in those things that you can actually use in your models in those objects. So I don't think and some BIM managers on this call, if there's any, can kind of jump in and comment as well. I don't think you need a BIM manager until you get bigger. But I think initially, if you're, you need to start implementing the BIM solution as if you already kind of were already bigger, and try to start with not just creating models, but actually creating those objects, creating those families so that they can be reused down the line in your other projects. I guess that would be my advice. And I think, Jackie, you and I should probably talk in more details of what you're actually thinking, and if we can help guide you in a better way. I don't know. That was a long-winded answer, but I'm hoping that it made sense.
Well, it was a fairly broad and deep question at the same time. So yeah, we can, again, that could be its own podcast. In fact, we've done multiple episodes on BIM. Jackie, you might be interested. Go back and see. We had a BIM manager on the show for 3-4 episodes. He did a good job really scoping out what it takes to implement BIM. I think that might be a little bit of content that would actually just pinpoint few ideas for you for this. I think it's just pretty much those episodes are for you, for people thinking about implementing and how to.
Yeah, and we can send that out directly to Jackie later.
Yeah, but it's Design Under Influence podcast. Those of you guys who are on the show or listening, recording, you can hit Design Under Influence podcast. Boris and I go deeply into BIM on 3 or 4 episodes, and we might do more in the future. All right, so I think Jackie took us right, kind of just segued us right into this last piece, which is combative as always. Revit and Bluebeam, and trying to use Mac to wrestle those down.
I think we covered the Bluebeam piece before. What we may, add in Revit, I guess if we're talking about Revit, the steps would be kind of similar from a standpoint of, if you're really intending on using Revit, but you also want to keep your office a Mac office, you're gonna have to run into some difficulties. And to be honest, like from my standpoint, and as I said, like we support Mac users, we support PC users, we support people that are trying to do this, like a Mac office running Revit. But from my standpoint as a business owner, honestly, it creates so much extra work for you as a business owner and for your team that really, like you have to stop and kind of think if it's really worth it. I think when we say, we want to use Mac because it's more efficient and the workflows are more efficient, if we introduce Revit or Bluebeam into that mix, it automatically becomes less efficient. And I think your business may actually be suffering from that. So if, putting kind of my hand on my heart, with all the honesty, I would say, if, don't try to do both, right? Don't try to run Revit on a Mac, if you're looking to grow your company, because the inefficiencies will keep growing and growing with that. If you're a small office and you're okay with kind of making those compromises and making the workarounds, then yeah, we can go back to some of the things I've already mentioned, right? You can run a virtual machine on a Mac with the Windows environment and have Revit running there. Now the M1 support is still not great, but it can be done. You can install, right? I've seen people just wipe their Macs from the Mac OS and install full versions of Windows and just use the Mac hardware because they like the design, but use the Windows operating system because, that's what supports their tools. So that's another option. Again, with M1 chips, it becomes a little bit of an issue because, the Windows operating system is not fully supported for M1. And the other option would be is, look, if you have hardcore Revit users, then maybe you implement PCs for those people, right? So you buy a couple of machines, high-powered PC machines for your, if you're an office of, let's say, 6 people, and you have 3 real hardcore Revit users, drafters, or architects who are doing mostly Revit, then you just dedicate 3 PCs for those, and they use PCs, and you and your team, since you're less in there, continue using a Mac. That's an option too. We see mixed offices all the time.
All right, very good. So let's see if we could get any more questions. And by the way, Jackie says thank you, and so thank you, Boris. Appreciate you expanding on this. Douglas says hi. Hey, Douglas, you got any questions? Let us know. We got another. I think we scheduled it for a little too long. We made a mistake there. So we have about another 9 minutes or so if we get any more questions. If not, Boris, you want to talk about any interesting tickets recently that we've had to tackle on both PC or Mac side?
Oh man, putting me on the spot right now.
Why not? Why not?
Oh, what was the interesting one? Hang on, let me take a look real quick. But I'm hoping that people have questions, because the reason why we made it this long the last time is because we ran out of time, right? And this time I wanted to make it just a little bit longer so people have enough time to ask questions. So please. Let's see.
Well, even if we take our last episode and just expand on that a little bit, the printing issue. I don't know if you keep seeing that, the network printing issue, you keep seeing that popping up, or is it something that's mostly been addressed and put to bed?
I think we've, people have implemented the workarounds because the issue has been in existence for at least 10 months now. So people have implemented the workarounds, and we have helped people implement workarounds and also implement the best practices to work around that issue. So I think that issue is not coming up as much. But as with anything, right? Any kind of bad update. And I think, so we can tie this back to the Mac. So one of the advantages and one of the things I really like about the Mac is the fact that they're kind of standardized, right? It's a standardized set of platform. It's the operating system with standardized set of hardware, and it's only tested, right? You only need to test this one operating system versus like 3 or 4 flavors of hardware that you have. And because of that, a lot of the issues that you may experience with Windows and Microsoft trying to kind of be universal for different sets of hardware, from Acer to Lenovo to HP to Dell and so on and so on, those issues kind of get eliminated on a Mac. So that's a big advantage. And when Windows puts out their updates, sometimes we'll run into issues, as we talked about the printing issue. There's also been a couple of other ones recently where it can break things. And, as part of our service, we kind of monitor that and vet for that. And that allows us to prevent deploying those bad updates to all of our clients, right? Because we do testing internally first. But with Mac, it's much more simpler, where unless you're doing a major upgrade of the operating system, kind of just installing those regular updates to improve security, improve the patch levels on your system is actually a pretty straightforward process. Still needs to be managed to make sure that everything gets installed and everything gets forced onto the machine, right? So that it's, so people don't just let it sit there. But yeah, it's a much easier process to manage in the Mac than it is on the PC side of things.
Gotcha. Thanks for that color. Now, Henry has a question. It's pretty technical. Cool. Is there still a budget-friendly option for GPU pass-through in a VDI solution? This is more specific to help with Enscape/V-Ray rendering issues I have faced before.
So are we talking about the on-premise VDI, or are we talking about cloud VDI? Because those are similar, but a little different. And as we're talking, I guess it'd be nice to understand the scale, because with VDI, the bigger the scale is, that, we found in the past with doing some analysis that, your break even is about 80 to 100 people if you're running an architecture firm. So 80 to 100 kind of architects on a VDI solution is when you start to see benefits over physical machines. Lower than that, financially, it wouldn't make sense. It makes sense in a lot of other aspects, right? Easier management, better remote access, things like that. But from a financial standpoint, you're still going to be spending more on the VDI infrastructure up until you get to about that 100 user mark. But once you get there, the solutions that we've used and tested specifically from NVIDIA, it adds a little bit to the budget, but again, compared to the overall system cost, it's fairly low. I think it's like 7 to 10% of the overall VDI solution cost for on-premise VDI. So, solutions from NVIDIA, their GPU, their Tesla, I guess their Tesla cards actually, do a very good job. And
I want to caution you to get too technical. I know you and Henry can nerd out on this stuff. I appreciate you guys. And Henry, I'd love for you to join our podcast episode. Let's get down with some of these issues and have a good conversation, debate. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut this off, but I just want to make sure that Boris, you stay a little bit to
stay the course,
user friendlier. Yeah, user friendlier, because I know you guys can get deep.
Yeah, so Henry, I'll follow up with you through LinkedIn or through other means just to kind of follow up on this question. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get too tactical.
don't hate me, Henry. I'm sorry. But Peter had, but like I said, let's go on the podcast. Let's do this together. Let's actually nerd out. Peter had a question. Perhaps this is actually a very interesting question because I'm really curious what you're gonna say, Boris. But so his question is this: perhaps not exactly part of the Mac PC debate technically, but if you're working with architecture, are you working with architecture offices that using tablets, iPads, etc. heavily ? We are starting to explore the functionality of Procreate for rendering and sketching. Great app, and the pencil makes it really a viable digital drawing tool. Thoughts?
So, I mean, I have not actually used the Procreate app, so I would be interested in learning more about it. In fact, after this call, I'll go and do the research. But I mean, we do have people use the iPads in the field because it does make things easier in terms of just kind of easy sketching quickly. And then there are also tools which help you measure, right, real time, and as well as kind of if you go more advanced, you can do a lot of as-built stuff if you need to, using some of the LiDAR sensors for the iPhone and the iPad as well, and then importing those into some tools that can do, and then import it into Revit. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. I think it's point cloud, right? So you basically generating point cloud models, and then you can use the Autodesk recap to actually get those imported into Revit. So yeah, so we're seeing definitely a lot of iPad and mobile devices used for that type of stuff. Also during construction administration, using other tools like PlanGrid or similar, to where you can go in and take pictures and pinpoint issues and kind of right on your mobile device, get stuff uploaded and make your work a lot more efficient than just having taken paper notes and things like that. So yeah, from that standpoint, we do. I obviously, as you mentioned, right, these tools are more useful for this type of LiDAR, either sketching or documenting, but not necessarily kind of creating full-scale models or fully replacing what architects do on day-to-day basis. But definitely there's a movement towards using more mobile technology, especially in the field.
Perfect. We're around 45-minute mark. Let's wrap this up. I wanted to thank everyone kindly for your questions and your participation and your time investment in our show. Hopefully you got something back out of it. You know what? If you want to just throw some questions at us, whether through LinkedIn or Boris, email Boris. Boris, what's your email? Is it boris@getarchit.com?
Let's just call it info@getarchit.com.
Oh, so impersonal. We should make it a hello.
Or hello.
Fine.
I think we have a hello
For now,
too.
this
was the first one that came to mind.
Okay. So there's a hello@getarchit.com for your questions. Like, we'd love those deeply technical questions like Henry brought up, because we can make podcast episodes out of them. It really helps other people out. And you get a free answer. I mean, what can be better? So yeah, throw us some of your thoughts, concerns, questions, feedback. Boris and I are looking at this stuff, and we're looking to make better content that fits, that answers your question. So thank you all for participating kindly. Any parting words of wisdom, Mr. IT God?
No, this is just, let's go win the day, right?
Let's go win the day, brother. All right. Thank you all very much. Smile. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you probably in a couple of weeks for another one. Be well.
Thank you.